Chris, and you're listening to my podcast. I call it The Chris Show. On here I talk about places I've been, and things I've done, and whatever else I could think of. All right, thank you very much. I started third grade in August or September of 1978. I went to Edgewood Elementary School in Houston. It was in the Spring Branch School District. My teacher's name was Mrs. Ponder, and that was the first time we went to different classes for English, math, whatever. I did have her for math, by the way, as well as social studies. And that school is unique that it wasn't in one building. It was several different buildings spread out among the different grades. So you were in the outside quite a bit. And they took us to see the play Rumpelstiltskin. And I also turned 9 that year. And I got a Star Wars X-Wing fighter. And I had a little party and got some other toys that I can't remember what they were off the top of my head. One was a little space port, or a little space station toy or whatever. And I got more Star Wars toys for Christmas. We also did the Christmas play. It was called Christmas Around the World, which traced the different Christmas customs from starting with the Nativity all the way to a little sketch they added, which was a story called The Night Before Christmas in Texas. I was in the choir even though I can't sing. Anyway, I also watched the original Battlestar Galactica. My mom took me and my sister to see the movie The Magic of Lassie with Jimmy Stewart. And it was, in the film, he played a man who was tricked into giving away his grandkid's dog that was played by Lassie. So his grandson ran away, and so he had to go chasing after him and Lassie. In fact, when I was watching the movie in the theater, I thought, since she had said Jimmy Stewart, that Jimmy Stewart was the little kid. And I asked who the old man was. She said James Stewart. I realized it was him. I also saw the original Superman movie that school year with Christopher Reeve. That was in early January of '79. I missed going back to school because I got the flu towards the end of the Christmas holidays. I also got a girl box of candy for Valentine's Day. I had a little girlfriend that year. Her name was Kathy. Anyway, we went to Matagorda Island Memorial Day weekend, and I got a sunburn. I also watched the World Series for the first time as a repeat of the 1977 series. The New York Yankees beat the Dodgers to win their 22nd championship overall and second back-to-back. It would be their last championship they would win until the 1996 season when they beat the Braves. Also became more of football, and I didn't exactly watch it. I do remember the first Super Bowl was between the Steelers and the Cowboys, where the Steelers won their third championship. They had beaten the Oilers in the AFC Championship game 2 weeks earlier, and when the Oilers got back to Houston, there was a big welcome party for them in the Astrodome. U of H football won the Southwest Conference and lost to Notre Dame and Joe Montana in the Cotton Bowl. Magic Johnson led the Michigan State Spartans over Larry Bird and the Indiana State Sycamores to win the NCAA basketball championship. Oklahoma halfback Billy Sims won the Heisman Trophy for 1978. Alabama and Southern California split the College Football National Championship as Alabama was voted number one by the Writers' Poll, the Associated Press, and Southern California was voted number one by the Coaches' Poll in the UPI. The Seattle Supersonics beat the Washington Bullets 4-1 to win the NBA championship. The Montreal Canadiens beat the New York Rangers 4 games to 1 to win the Stanley Cup. The Daytona 500 was shown on television for the first time. Richard Petty won the race, and after the race there was a fight between Cale Yarborough and the Allison brothers, Bobby and Donnie. Coming up, we'll take a look at what happened in the news when I was in 3rd grade. Okay, some news items I remember. The vice premier of China at the time, Deng Xiaoping, visited Houston on a state visit. He went to a rodeo in nearby Simonton. Also, Bill Clements became the first Republican elected governor of Texas in 100 years. He beat the Attorney General John Hill, who was the Democratic nominee. Also that same year, so later in late 1978 that is, was the Jonestown incident where followers of the Reverend Jim Jones all committed mass suicide by drinking poison Kool-Aid. Well, some of them did, some of them were forced to drink it, but that's basically where the phrase "drink the Kool-Aid" came from. Anyway, overseas, Margaret Thatcher became the first female prime minister in Europe when she became the prime minister of the United Kingdom after the Conservative Party won the parliamentarian elections. And there was also the Camp David Accords that were signed and the 3 Mile Island meltdown. In other news, former Vice President Nelson Rockefeller passed away, as did legendary ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and actress Mary Pickford. Coming up, a look at people who were born when I was in 3rd grade. Okay, let's see here. People who were born when I was in 3rd grade were... Pen and paper. Oh, here we go. Actor Anthony Mackie, R&B singer and songwriter Usher, pro wrestler CM Punk, actress Katherine Heigl, singer Clay Aiken, actor Jesse Metcalf, baseball player Chase Utley, actress Kate Hudson, former Super Bowl champion with the New Orleans Saints Drew Brees, singer Avril Lavigne, actor Heath Ledger, and actress Kate Hudson. Also, like most of the kids back then, I watched cartoons on Saturday mornings, and the new ones were Fang Face, Challenge of the Super Friends, the Cross Superstars Hour, the all-new Popeye Hour, the all-new Pink Panther Show, Fantastic Four, and Bigfoot and Wild Boy, and Tarzan and the Super 7. Coming up, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of my family. Now here's a little about my family. We'll start with my father's paternal line, that is the Carlisle line. My 6th great-grandfather was named Edward Carlisle. He was married to Martha Boyd. My 5th great-grandfather was Thomas Carlisle. John Carlisle was my 4th great-grandfather. He was married to Elizabeth Meadows. James Carlisle was my 3rd great-grandfather. He was married to Huldah Prestridge. William Carlisle was my 2nd great-grandfather. He was married to Miranda Franklin. It's through her that I maybe, through adoption, have some sort of a connection to Benjamin Franklin. Yes, that Benjamin Franklin. Anyway, their son George was my great-grandfather. He was married to Georgina Brookshire. Gotta correct myself on that earlier comment about my parents being divorced. They were divorced, as my mother is also no longer with us. She passed last year. Her maiden name was Hopper. Her name was Carol, by the way. William Hopper was my 4th great-grandfather. He was married to Sarah Thomas. Their son Cosby Hopper was my 3rd great-grandfather. He was married to Izora Mitchum. Their son, William Hopper, was my 2nd great-grandfather, and he was married to Zell Jones. Their son was William Hopper. He was my great-grandfather. He was married to Alice Fulton. And their son, William, was my grandpa. He was married to Gertrude Yates. Eli Yates was my 4th great-grandfather. His son, John, was my 3rd great-grandfather. Well, his son, also named John, was my second great grandfather. He was married to Annie Fisher. Their son Thomas Yates was my great grandfather, and he was married to Lena Yates, and their daughter Gertrude was my grandmother. Okay, anyway, my mother's family ended up in the Cameron and Rosebud areas. Now let's take a look at the relatives of my great grandmother, starting with my great grandmother Carlisle. Her name was Brookshire. James Brookshire was my fourth great grandfather. He was married to Martha Wright. Their son Mannering Brookshire was my third great grandfather. He was married to Sarah Shelton. Jesse Brookshire was my second great grandfather. He was married to Margaret Jones. Let's see here. Richard Wheatley was my third great grandfather. His son Robert was my second great grandfather. He was married to Martha Hayes. Their daughter Donnie Wheatley was my great grandmother. My great grandmother Aldridge, by the way. On my mother's side, my great grandmother Fulton's side, John Fulton was my fourth great grandfather. His son Samuel Fulton was my third great grandfather. His son Stanford was my second great grandfather. By the way, Samuel Fulton was married to Martha McTire. Stanford Fulton was married to Eula Woods. Alfred Fisher was my fourth great grandfather. His son Samuel Fisher was my third great grandfather. He was married to Matilda Hampton. Their daughter Annie was my second great grandmother. My great grandmother Yates' maiden name was Ferris. Uriah Ferris was my fourth great grandfather. Solomon Ferris was my third great grandfather. His son Richard Ferris was my second great grandfather. He was married to Lottie McLaren. I've had members of my family who have served in the military, going all the way back to the American Revolution, and I have one who is currently serving. He is serving in the Army. By the way, I had to get gas yesterday, and regular was right at $4. I ended up filling up about half a tank. Anyway, getting back to when I was in the third grade, I seem to remember there was a gas shortage back then, and waiting in line to get gas. Of course, I wasn't driving, so I didn't have much to worry about back then. But my parents sure did, and they were very tight on money. Anyway, also during Christmas that year, I saw the Star Wars Holiday Special. Two weeks from this coming Saturday, I'm going to see the Dallas Stars play hockey. They're playing the Vancouver Canucks, so this will be the first time I've seen an NHL game, although I have seen some minor league hockey games before. Here's an OMG fact for you. More germs are transferred by shaking hands than by kissing. Okay, on TV tonight, we've got FBI, FBI International, and FBI Most Wanted on CBS. We have American Auto, Grand Crew, This Is Us, and The Thing About Pam on NBC. The Bachelor and To Tell the Truth on ABC. The Resident, and I Can See Your Voice on Fox. We also have Superman and Lois and Naomi on the CW. I have 143 friends on Facebook. I have 24 followers on Instagram and 69 followers on Twitter. Okay, here's something I found on the Forever 80s / Decades with Joey Kramer radio show Facebook page. It says here, 2 years ago, this was our last normal week, and nobody knew it. Getting back to what went on when I was in the third grade, I got to go and see the Houston Astros home opener for the 1979 season, and I saw a couple more games before the school year ended. I saw them play the Cubs in a doubleheader, and let me see who else. Actually, I think the rest of the games I saw were during the summer. I also went out for a Little League that year. I was okay enough in the tryout to get picked by one of the teams, but I ended up getting cut because I didn't go to enough of the practices. Plus, I suck anyway, so that wouldn't have made a difference. We also went to a place called the Science Center. During the holidays, we went up to Rosebud to visit my grandparents for Thanksgiving, and they came down to Houston for Christmas, and we went over to my Aunt Pam's on Christmas morning. The toy I got was a Micronauts toy. Micronauts were a toy line from back in that time. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of The Chris Show. I want to thank you for listening, and be sure to hit the download button and hit the like button if you liked what you hear. The Chris Show is available on Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iHeart. The Chris Show is hosted and produced by me, Chris Carlisle, through the Spreaker Studio app.